I never imagined life would throw me into a story I wasn't ready for. At 50, I thought I had already seen all the twists and turns life had to offer. I'd loved, I'd lost, I'd endured heartbreak and disappointment, and eventually, I had found a quiet sort of peace. My days had a rhythm. I'd grown comfortable with morning coffee on the porch, a little work to keep my mind busy, occasional calls with friends, and the comforting hum of solitude. Love felt like a distant memory, a chapter I'd long since closed. Then everything changed the day Daniel walked into my life. He was 26, calm and understated, the kind of man who didn't need to announce his presence to be noticed. He came through a mutual friend, needing a place to stay temporarily while he sorted out some work in town. I had a spare bedroom and, logically, it made sense. There was nothing complicated about it, or so I thought. At first, Daniel and I simply coexisted. Polite greetings in the morning, small talk over coffee, sharing the same space without really sharing much of ourselves. But slowly, I began noticing little things about him, subtle gestures that made life feel warmer. A mug of tea left near my favorite chair. Groceries restocked without a word. Fixing the leaky faucet I'd ignored for months. Walking the dog early in the morning so I could sleep a little longer. Small things that, at first, seemed ordinary, but over time, started to mean more than I could admit to myself. One afternoon, he brought home a tea blend I hadn't seen in years. "I thought you might like this," he said casually. Something in the way he said it, the simplicity of the gesture, the thought behind it, stirred something deep inside me. It wasn't just about tea, it was the feeling of being seen, of someone remembering the things that mattered to me, even the small, almost forgotten ones. As the weeks went by, we started talking more. Not forced conversations, but real ones. Evenings stretched into quiet moments in the living room, candlelight flickering across the walls during a storm, tea warming our hands. He asked questions I hadn't been asked in years. "What songs shaped your youth?" he'd say. "What scared you the most growing up? What dreams did you have when you were young?" I answered slowly, honestly, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly heard. Daniel shared pieces of himself too. Stories of trying to find his place in the world, the loneliness he'd felt despite always being surrounded by people his own age, the frustration of chasing goals that seemed to drift further away with every step. There was a raw vulnerability in him, a quiet sincerity that mirrored parts of me I had long hidden. One night, during a storm that knocked out the power, we found ourselves sitting close together by candlelight. "Do you ever feel like you're chasing a future that keeps slipping away?" he asked. Without thinking, I nodded. "You're not alone," I said quietly. And in that moment, something shifted. I began noticing more how his laughter made my chest lighten, how his presence made the house feel fuller. I told myself it was just companionship, a simple connection between a woman and her house guest. But the truth was already undeniable. There was a subtle tension between us, something unspoken, delicate, and powerful. There were moments that made my heart ache and my mind race. Like the day I'd had an especially difficult morning, feeling overwhelmed by grief and loneliness, and Daniel simply sat beside me without a word. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, and I murmured, "I'm fine," not wanting to admit how heavy life felt. He didn't push. He reached for my hand, and that small touch felt like an anchor. "You don't have to be," he said quietly. "You deserve to be held. I see you." Those words broke something open inside me. I had been hiding for so long, and suddenly, I realized I could let someone in. Our connection grew slowly, naturally. There were no dramatic declarations or tearful confessions, only quiet moments of understanding and closeness. With Daniel, I could just be. No pretense, no guard, no expectations, just the simple joy of being seen and appreciated. Doubts crept in from time to time, the age difference, what others might think, the fear that it couldn't last, but every time I looked into his eyes, soft and steady, those doubts quieted. Eventually, Daniel moved into his own place nearby, but that didn't change anything. He still came over, shared meals, asked about my day, checked in like he genuinely cared. Our lives shifted, not with fanfare or fireworks, but with a steady, comforting rhythm. And slowly, I realized something extraordinary. Love doesn't always arrive with grand gestures. Sometimes it creeps in quietly, wearing simple clothes, asking nothing but space to grow, and offering warmth in the form of thoughtful actions, shared moments, and gentle words. Daniel hadn't just entered my home, he had returned me to myself. He reminded me that life didn't have to be lived in solitude, that connection could exist even after years of heartbreak. He became my companion, my confidant, my unexpected second chance. And I embraced it, gladly, knowing that love, no matter how quietly it arrived, was worth every risk. Life had given me a chapter one never expected, but when Daniel arrived, it felt like coming home not with a storm of passion, but with patience, care, and a love that asked for nothing but acceptance. And in that quiet, steady presence, I found something I thought I'd lost forever, the joy of being truly seen, and the warmth of a heart willing to love again.